The 11:21. Act Y. Trouble at 11:21 a.m. Chapter 1. The first alarm, Dex. Ryder woke up to the gentle sound of chaos outside his window. A sound best described as 50 goats auditioning for America's Got Talent. And knew, with a sinking feeling, that he was late. Again. He flailed at his alarm clock with the grace of a stunned octopus, finally knocking it off the nightstand. It hit the floor with a sad thud, flashing 11:19 a.m. in blinking red digits before dying completely. "Oh, come on," Dex groaned, kicking off his Spider-Man sheets and stumbling out of bed. He tripped over his cat, Chairperson Meow, who yowled in righteous indignation and darted under the dresser, presumably to draft a formal complaint. Dex's brain, still fogged with sleep and half a Hot Pocket dream, struggled to form logical thoughts. Why were there goats? Why was there yelling? Why had he eaten 4 Taco Bell value meals last night and thought it was a good idea? Questions for future Dex. Right now, present Dex had a job to almost do well. He yanked on his Minton Falls private security uniform, which, thanks to an enthusiastic dryer and some questionable laundry decisions, now fit him like a spandex sausage casing. He briefly considered taking the time to fix his hair, but then remembered. No amount of gel could fix what genetics had so aggressively sabotaged. Downstairs, Dex skidded across the kitchen linoleum, grabbed a half-eaten Pop-Tart from the counter, strawberry because he was a professional, and hurled himself out the door. The scene that greeted him on Main Street was, well, imagine if a petting zoo, a 4th of July parade, and a demolition derby all got drunk together and tried to have a baby. That was Minton Falls at 11:21 a.m. A herd of goats, actual literal goats, stormed down the street wearing various articles of stolen clothing. A police hat, a tutu, a suspiciously expensive-looking handbag. Mayor McDuff's voice crackled over a megaphone somewhere, frantically ordering people to remain calm, which, as everyone knows, is the universal signal to do the exact opposite. A donut truck, Jerry's Jam-Filled Joys, smoldered outside the town library, smoke curling lazily into the blue sky like some sort of extremely passive-aggressive ghost. Dex blinked. Then he blinked again, slower, to see if maybe the goats would turn into something more sensible, like geese. They didn't. "Not again," he muttered, stuffing the rest of the Pop-Tart into his mouth and jogging, lightly shuffling toward the chaos. "Dex!" The shrill voice of Trixie Wren, local conspiracy vlogger and full-time menace, sliced through the din. She was perched on the roof of the post office, smartphone in one hand, a bullhorn in the other. "It's happening again!" she yelled gleefully, filming everything. "The 11:21 phenomenon. The goats are clearly government agents." Dex waved at her distractedly. He wasn't sure what was more alarming, the fact that Trixie had fans, or that she might actually be right about something for once. "Someone do something!" Mayor McDuff's voice blared from a different direction. Dex finally spotted him, trapped atop a picnic table like a very sweaty, very angry lighthouse keeper, waving a plunger at the oncoming goat tide. "I'm someone," Dex called out, puffing up his chest. He sprinted into action, meaning he jogged 5 steps, tripped over a garden gnome, and face-planted into a patch of decorative begonias. Chairperson Meow, if he had been there, would have been proud. Dex staggered to his feet just as the lead goat, a sturdy, bearded fellow wearing a pair of aviator sunglasses, locked eyes with him. There was a moment of mutual respect, and then the goat head-butted Dex square in the gut. Air whooshed out of Dex's lungs in a sound not unlike a deflating bagpipe. He doubled over, wheezing dramatically, and collapsed onto the sidewalk like a particularly uncoordinated deck chair. Somewhere behind him, Trixie whooped with glee. "This is gold! You're trending already, Dex!" she shouted. Dex had dreamed of trending once. Not like this, never like this. By the time he staggered upright again, clutching his ribs and pride like fragile glass, the goat herd had stormed past, leaving only chaos and the faint scent of goat. Musk. Dex brushed off his uniform, plastered on what he hoped was a heroic grimace. It was more of a pained whimper, and addressed the confused and panicking townsfolk. "Nothing to see here, folks," he croaked, voice cracking. "Just your average, government-mandated goat exercise drill?" A beat of silence. A woman in yoga pants and a Live Laugh Llama shirt burst into tears. Trixie, still filming, cackled so hard she nearly dropped her phone. Somewhere, a car alarm went off. A raccoon trotted by carrying what looked suspiciously like the mayor's wallet. Dex took a deep, ragged breath. He'd been a part-time security guard for exactly 7 months, and in that time, he had written precisely 4 parking tickets, stopped exactly 0 crimes, and eaten at least 72 free muffins from the mayor's weekly coffee and complaints sessions. But this was his moment. The goats were just the beginning. He could feel it in his slightly bruised spleen. At 11:21 a.m., the universe had officially declared war on Minton Falls. And whether it liked it or not, Dex Ryder was on the front lines. Admittedly, he was wearing flip-flops and had jelly in his hair. But hey, every war needed its hero. Probably. Maybe. Hopefully. Chapter 2. Trixie spots a pattern. Trixie Wren had 2 talents in life. 1. Finding government conspiracies where there definitely weren't any. 2. Finding government conspiracies where there absolutely were. Today was feeling suspiciously like a talent 2 kind of day. She sat cross-legged on the roof of the Minton Falls post office, a spot she had lovingly dubbed Command Center Alpha Bravo Zebra, because it sounded more official than roof. Her phone balanced precariously on a stack of pizza boxes from last night's emergency stakeout party, and her pink bullhorn sat beside her, sunbathing. Below her, the town of Minton Falls reeled from the Great Goat Uprising of 11:21 a.m., a moment which Trixie had captured in stunning 4K video, complete with Dex Ryder being body-slammed by a goat wearing sunglasses. Honestly, it was some of her best work. She finished editing the footage with the nimble speed of someone who had once uploaded a proof that ducks are spies expose in under 10 minutes. Her fingers flew across her cracked screen, adding dramatic music, slow-motion goat zoom-ins, and a helpful blinking graphic that read, "Wake up, sheeple," or "Goat pull?" Satisfied, she titled the video, "The 1121 Conspiracy Exposed. They Don't Want You to Know." She hesitated for exactly half a second before adding a thumbnail of Dex mid-goat impact, his face frozen in the kind of horror usually reserved for slow-motion car crashes and surprise math tests. Perfect. Trixie tapped upload and watched her phone spin its little progress circle. Somewhere in cyberspace, a server wept softly. "You're welcome, humanity," she said, raising her half-empty Red Bull in a solemn toast to herself. The sun blazed overhead. The faint smell of burning donuts wafted through the town square. Somewhere, a goat bleated in slow, contemplative regret. Trixie kicked her legs over the roof's edge and grinned. This wasn't just another weird Tuesday in Minton Falls. This was a pattern, and patterns meant plot. Her vlogs had been screaming about the 1121 weirdness for months now. It started small. Light bulbs shattering, weather vanes spinning in circles, Mayor McDuff's toupee making a break for freedom on a particularly windy morning. But today the town was practically gift-wrapping the evidence for her. In goats. Her phone dinged. First comment, "OMG, this is insane, LMAU, is that dude okay?" At Pigeon Overlord 88. "Going viral already," she muttered smugly. "Move over, cat videos. Time for some truth bombs." She grabbed her bullhorn, cranked it to blindingly loud, and announced to no one in particular, "Attention, citizens of Minton Falls. We are under attack by, interdimensional goats." A startled flock of pigeons exploded off a nearby roof like feathery popcorn. Trixie paused, thoughtful. Maybe interdimensional was too strong a claim. For now. Maybe it was aliens. Maybe it was time travelers. Maybe it was shadowy corporate overlords trying to build a Waffle House death ray. She was still workshopping that theory. One thing was certain, 1121 wasn't normal, and Trixie Wren was going to prove it if it killed her. Or Dex. Dex seemed way more breakable. She sipped her Red Bull and pulled out her spiral-bound notebook. The one covered in stickers that said things like "Trust no one" and "Question your toaster." Inside, a sprawling diagram labeled "The 1121 Phenomenon" filled page after page, complete with red ink arrows, polka-dotted goat doodles, and a highly questionable timeline that blamed everything from the town's power outages to the invention of fidget spinners. She flipped to today's entry and scribbled furiously. April 27th, 11:21 a.m. Event: Goat Stampede, Donut Truck Explosion, Dex Humiliation, Level Severe. She underlined "severe" 3 times and added a tiny drawing of Dex being karate chopped by a goat. Across the street, Dex himself was struggling to wrangle a baby goat that had somehow gotten its hooves stuck in a newspaper vending machine. It was not going well. If this were a competition, The goat was winning by technical knockout. Trixie zoomed in with her phone and started live streaming. "Good citizens of the internet," she began solemnly, "I bring you exclusive proof that Minton Falls is the epicenter of a deeply sinister plot, and that Dex Ryder is, without a doubt, completely unequipped to handle it." Dex, who could somehow hear her commentary from across the square, possibly through sheer force of psychic embarrassment, flipped her an exhausted thumbs up. The comments flooded in faster than she could read them. "This town is wild OMG. At Actual Ghost Hunters. Life. Dex is my spirit animal. At Unicorn Doomhammer. Where can I buy a goat helmet? At Shrek is my life." Trixie beamed. Soon everyone would know. The world would watch. And when it all unraveled, when the mayor's lies collapsed, when the goats rose to claim their rightful throne, it would be Trixie Wren, vlogger supreme, who had called it first. Well, her and probably 3 dudes in an abandoned Reddit forum, but still. Just then, her phone buzzed. New message from unknown number. "Stop digging. 1121 must remain a secret." Trixie stared at it, pulse racing. This was it. The shadowy government threats she had always dreamed of. She immediately screenshot the message and added it to her live stream with a caption, "Breaking. They're trying to silence me. #GoatGate. Mag Justice for Dex." She giggled and pulled her tinfoil emergency hat out of her backpack, cramming it onto her head with dramatic flair. Because if she was going to expose the truth, she might as well look fabulous doing it. And maybe, just maybe, live long enough to see what fresh nonsense 11:21 p.m. would bring. Spoiler, it would involve clowns. But that, dear readers, was a horror for another chapter. Chapter 3. Mayor McDuff's cover-up. Mayor Hamilton Slick McDuff had survived 3 elections, 2 financial scandals, and 1 extremely ill-advised town salsa competition. He wasn't about to let a few rogue goats ruin his career. Not today. Not when he was this close to closing the biggest real estate deal in Minton Falls history. The one that required, very specifically, 30 consecutive days without major public incidents. Today was day 29. McDuff adjusted his tie, a patriotic monstrosity featuring dancing bald eagles, and mopped sweat from his forehead with a monogrammed handkerchief. The goats had been bad enough. The viral video footage, featuring Dex Ryder achieving new heights of goat-based humiliation, was even worse. But the real disaster? Trixie Wren. Her livestream had already amassed 12,000 views, 3 conspiracy memes, and 1 remix where the goats were edited to headbutt Dex in rhythm to Eye of the Tiger. McDuff clenched his fists. Something had to be done. Now. He stormed into Town Hall's Media Relations Center, which was really just a supply closet with a folding chair and a coffee maker that hissed ominously, and summoned the town's 3 official reporters: Linda Pickett, local newspaper columnist and part-time psychic; Greg G-Man Flanders, amateur weatherman and full-time oversharer; Bobby Lee Schmidt, high school junior and editor of the Minton Falls Gazette, online-only version. "Gather round, team," McDuff said, slapping a $20 bill dramatically onto the folding chair. "I have an exclusive for you. Big story. Huge." Linda raised an eyebrow. Greg scratched his elbow thoughtfully, a move that somehow made his entire plaid shirt rustle. Bobby Lee pulled out her phone without making eye contact. "The goat situation," McDuff began, "was a scheduled and sanctioned therapeutic initiative." Linda blinked. "Thera what now?" "Therapy goats," McDuff said, puffing up like a frog about to win a debate. "You know, stress reduction, team bonding, emotional support through livestock." Greg's eyes lit up. "Like that time my aunt brought a miniature horse to Thanksgiving because she said it helped with her gambling problem?" "Exactly," McDuff barked, seizing the momentum. "These goats were part of a new, cutting-edge wellness program I personally championed. Unfortunately, they got a little excited." Bobby Lee narrowed her eyes. "You want us to tell the town that the goats were here? On purpose?" McDuff smiled the oily smile of a man who once convinced voters that installing a second world's largest ball of twine would double tourism. "That's right," he said, oozing sincerity. "Write it up. Therapy goats gone rogue. Very tragic. Very moving. But most importantly, totally normal. Business as usual." He slid another crumpled $10 bill onto the chair for good measure. Linda stared at the money like it might sprout legs and sprint away. Greg pulled out a notebook and scribbled furiously. Bobby Lee recorded the whole thing on her TikTok account under the caption, "When the mayor tries to bribe you, but you still need college applications." Meanwhile, across town, the first official Therapy Goat Memorial Parade had already accidentally started. Technically, it was just Jerry from the donut truck wandering down Main Street with a goat on a leash and a "We Shall Remember" sign. But in Minton Falls, if 3 people walked in the same direction with any enthusiasm, it counted as a parade. Back at Town Hall, McDuff wasn't finished spinning. He wheeled out the pièce de résistance, a glossy poster he had whipped up with his assistant. It showed a cartoon goat wearing sunglasses, giving a thumbs up, and the words, "Therapy Goats of Minton Falls, healing hearts, one headbutt at a time." Linda coughed discreetly. "Mayor McDuff, sir," she said, choosing her words with the careful delicacy of a woman tiptoeing through an active minefield. "Some folks might think the goat, incidents look bad for the town." McDuff slapped the poster with a meaty hand. "Nonsense! This shows we're progressive, forward-thinking, compassionate." He beamed so hard it was almost physically painful to watch. Greg nodded sagely. "My cousin has a therapy peacock. Saved his marriage." McDuff pounced. "Exactly. And you know what studies show, right? Animals increase serotonin, decrease blood pressure, boost small-town charm." Linda and Bobby Lee exchanged a look. It was the universal female look that meant, "Do you want to start laughing, or should I?" Trixie Wren's voice suddenly crackled through a nearby police scanner. "And if you look closely at the footage, you can clearly see that these goats are not licensed emotional support animals." McDuff turned the scanner off with a decisive click. "Anyway," he said breezily, "press conference at noon. Get your quotes ready. And remember, say it with me, therapy goats." There was a dull, mumbled chorus of "therapy goats." Duff clapped his hands in delight. Crisis, he thought, smugly averted. Sure, there were still a few problems. The donut truck was currently fused to the library steps. Dex was live-streaming a goat recovery operation that involved him being dragged across the street by a particularly stubborn nanny goat. Someone had spray-painted the goat's no on the statue of founder Jeremiah Minton. But overall, things were looking up. And if another disaster decided to show up at exactly 11:21 tomorrow, well, Mayor McDuff would just cross that burning, goat-infested bridge when he came to it. Preferably while wearing very fast shoes.